Justified in questions, justified in getting answers. Matt Palumbo and Booker Scott are justified. This is the PB&J Podcast.
We begin this hour with our thoughts and prayers with those in the Midwest of this great country. Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, just a few of the states that have been decimated from torrential rains this whole week, and they're continuing this weekend. And we're talking historical flooding in Indiana. Governor Mike Braun has already declared a state of emergency in that state. And coming up here in this hour, we have the Lieutenant Governor of Indiana. His name is Micah Beckwith. He is a great conservative. He's also outspoken, and he'll have a lot to say, and he'll get us caught up to date on what is going on there in Indiana, especially as they deal with historical flooding. I'm Booker Scott. This is the PB&J Podcast. The co-host for this hour is Matt Palumbo. Matt, good to see you back in your studio this week. And,
good to be back. I think going to go much more smoothly without that delay.
I don't know. There was a delay last week. So if you're watching tonight on WD Americans Facebook Live, thank you for doing that. And also, if you're watching on one of the many platforms of Talk Red, thank you also for doing that. As I mentioned, Micah Beckwith will be here in just a few minutes to talk about the flooding in Indiana. He will also talk about Muslims and Sharia law. He'll talk about the Indiana fever, as he has called for the dismissal of the head coach of the Indiana Fever after everything that's been going on with Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. So we'll see what he has to say. We're going to start this hour, though, with Medicaid and what is changing there. Matt, you want to get us started there? And we have a video we can play with that, too, when you get finished.
It's reminiscent of those headlines that we get on a weekly basis where it's like, we're no longer giving free college to illegal aliens, and we're going, wait, we were paying for what? This is the Medicare trans version, in that we are now no longer going to be funding hormones for teenage or hormone therapies or trans surgeries through Medicaid. Apparently, this is something we've been doing. I'm sure it falls into that category of things liberals said it was a right-wing conspiracy, but now it's going to be something they both acknowledge is real and will say we're Hitler for wanting to get rid of. But I think it's probably common sense there.
Well, let's play this video and get everybody caught up in case they don't know exactly what we're talking about yet.
No more federal dollars. Your tax money will no longer pay for puberty blockers, sex hormones, gender-altering surgeries for Americans under 18 years old. And it begins October 13th. The president says, we are not going to pay for our innocent children to undergo these barbaric surgeries and practices which result in unthinkable and irreversible harm to their young bodies.
And, our attitude towards this should not be, do what you want, just make sure it's only adults doing this and make sure my tax dollars aren't funding it. We should be running these clinics out of existence. They should be getting sued by every single person that's ever had a medical complication, that's ever been pressured into getting one of these surgeries. And that is what they do. It is too all about money for them ultimately, and the ideology is just a way to disguise that, at least for the providers. I know there's obviously countless true believers in academia and all throughout the Democratic Party, but for the doctors involved in this is a cash grab. And what comes to mind is Matt Walsh had gotten leaked footage from, I think it was a school connected, or a medical school connected to Vanderbilt University, but it was somewhere in Tennessee, I believe.
It's Vanderbilt,
It was Vanderbilt, yes. And that is what stood out, is when you hear these doctors talking about the surgeries, it's, oh, well, if we give this surgery, they have to come back 10 more times, and we get to bill this amount for each of those 10 times. The logic they give to the rhetoric they give to the public of, we're helping people be their true, authentic selves, was not even mentioned once, which And that's because that's the truth. The true fact of the matter is who you are is your authentic self, not the person you become after dropping six figures on being on disfigurement. But it's just interesting. These people really are psychopaths, and that is how they talk about trans people when they are behind closed doors. They don't want to help them at all. If they wanted to help them, they would not be offering these surgeries. And just kind of shows we're on the right on this, obviously.
Have you ever seen those maps that show how many transgender surgery clinics there are in America?
And it's a phenomenon of the past 1 or 2 decades. And it's one of those things where, listen, if this has been with us for all of humanity, if not until 20 years ago did it really become noticeable. Or we'll hear them say, they'll claim there's a transgender suicide epidemic, that like 40% of transgender people are killing themselves. Now, the stats are massively inflated. A lot of that is suicidal ideation. It's just what percent of trans people have once thought about killing themselves. And, over a long enough timeline, I'm sure a very large share of any population is going to have that thought, even if it's just once on any given day. But it's just... Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Let me jump in here. Let me go back to these maps, because if you look at a map from...
Sorry, I just remembered what I was going to say. I was going to say that, I don't know how I forgot my point. That if that really was true, that 40% were killing themselves, we would expect... for all of human history, except for the past 20 years, there to be all these unexplained suicides that we just went, wow, what the hell happened there? Because, the trans people couldn't be themselves. Obviously, that never happened. So that was what I was going to say.
Well, about the maps, here's what I was going to say about that. If you go back 15, 20 years ago and look at how many transgender clinics are in America, there were maybe a handful, maybe 5 to 10. If you look at a map now, the entire United States is covered with clinics all over the place. The interesting part, which I think it would, show that this was a money grab. Mm-hmm. The money became available through Medicaid or Medicare or whatever it is. And these doctors found a way to make a lot of money, and they've done a lot of damage to a lot of children. If you look north of America and south of America on those maps, you'll see that Canada and Mexico doesn't have the trans problem that America has. Yeah. So I think it's all having to do with money, and hopefully this will help that and kind of put an end to it all.
Yeah, and Canada is way more cartoonishly liberal than even the worst parts of America are. Yeah. So it is interesting that you just don't have the financial incentive and it disappears. I'm sure they have, all sorts of crazy trans protections and so-called trans rights laws, but it's just the extent of the actually going through with the, dismemberment is not happening to the extent it's happening here, at least.
Were you surprised that Luigi Mangione pled guilty on Friday? I was too. Yeah, he murdered Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, just to remind everybody what he did. Very odd that he has become a big hero to so many people for murdering a father and the CEO of United Healthcare. Not only that, he has all kinds of women after him. Yep. And I guess maybe he's going to get married, but he pled guilty.
Yeah. It's interesting. If I was him and I was looking at the support you're getting from crazies out in the world, I would say to myself, well, was there 9 jurors, I assume, on this panel? What's that percent? 11%. So I need, for one person to dissent or be in my favor. Well, it seems like out in the world somehow it's more than 1 in 9. It was just a disturbing thing to observe. So yeah, I would have, if I was, I guess, a crazy murderer with a fan club, taken the odds and thought, all right, maybe one of them will get me off. But I think he's going for a double jeopardy kind of situation here, where he's gonna try to hopefully get a lesser sentence where he can get out of jail at some point and then squash the other charges. I doubt it'll actually work, but I guess this is what he sees as his best bet. When it comes to the murder and the support, I think everyone is trying to intellectualize it on, it's people fed up with the healthcare system. No, it's the left hates successful people. They hate wealthy people, and they hate them in positions of power. That's the key, because Brian Thompson came from poverty and actually worked his way up to that position. Luigi Angioni grew up in a house worth $10+ million. His brother is actually a Republican politician, and I can't remember what state, but is a member of the House of Representatives. Actually, I think it's in Maryland. His family is very well known. I mean, I think his dad is and grandparents have Wikipedia pages. Like, these are established. This is an established family. So if anything, he's the privileged one, but I guess because he's not in a position of power, he gets a pass on that. And you know, the justification came after the fact. It was, oh, he killed a guy. We're happy about this. Okay, how do we justify this? Oh, yeah, healthcare costs are high. Well, healthcare costs are high because hospitals charge a lot. The insurance companies have nothing to do with the prices being high. And yes, I know they're horrible to work with, especially when they're denying claims. But do we think health insurance companies would deny so many claims if the prices weren't as astronomically high from the hospitals themselves? Probably not. And I don't want to be in a spot where I'm defending healthcare companies. But if you were to ask these people, like, name one policy change that Brian Thompson made that you disagree with, what would they say? And there would be nothing. Like, they have no examples. What has gotten better in the healthcare industry since his murder? Is there a single variable? I mean, I know prescription drugs have come down in price, but that's because of Trump's Trump RX program. So there's no tangible, like, there's no quote unquote silver lining in terms of anything improving in healthcare since this guy got murdered.
Well, and the people that cheer him on would cheer the fact that since 2011, inflation is 49%. Inflation for healthcare cost is 52%. So it skews a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. The problem is health insurance has gone up 154% in the same time period. Yep. So it has gone way above that 52% inflation of healthcare costs. There are two different things. There's health insurance and healthcare cost. And I think that's why, some people see him as a hero. We obviously don't, but
here's the thing, too. The left won't acknowledge there's 30 million illegals probably in this country. If they go to a hospital, they pay absolutely nothing. And that gets passed on to everyone else's costs. And you remove demand for anything by 30 million people in a country of our size, it's going to be noticeable. And it's, again, one of my many. I know everything I see is an argument for deportation. That is one of the more stronger ones. So,
well, let's go to this video clip. U.S. Attorney McDonald here about Luigi Mangione.
He attempted to send a public message through violence, but the message that emerges today is very different. Violence is not a legitimate instrument to promote any political or social message. And those who resort to violence in an effort to advance their beliefs will be prosecuted, convicted, and put in jail. Today, the Southern District of New York, together with our law enforcement partners, writes the final chapter of Mangione's federal prosecution. Now, he stands convicted in federal court and faces life in prison.
And we'll have to wait and see how they sentence him, whether he'll get life. I guess he probably would. Maybe he would get parole somewhere along the way. 30 years, maybe that's right.
The thing is, and I hate to have this be the case, if we want people to take pleas, you do have to offer an incentive in that, if there's a crazy killer facing 50 years if he's found guilty, if he's going to plea, you got to give him 45 or something, just because if the maximum sentence is still on the table, at least I think in theory, you're going to get a lot fewer people taking pleas, and then you're going to have more people getting off on some technicality or one rogue juror or that kind of situation. So and you also save the taxpayers probably millions of dollars in this case. So I think, maybe he should be up for parole in like 50 years if you're going to offer anything, but you want to make it where it's something just short of the maximum you were going to do, at least according to the Matt Palumbo legal theory.
Well, we know that you are well studied when it comes to legal theories, no doubt about it. Did you see the SPLC former chief financial officer, Heidi Beirich? She was arrested in California this week. SPLC, evidently, it's alleged, we should say, is they paid KKK and other white supremacists to be white supremacists so that they could raise money. Yep. That was their scam, wasn't it?
Can you imagine being a Klansman and being like, wait, we're getting paid for this now, and who's paying it? The Southern Poverty Law Center. Like, it sounds like I don't know, like a movie sketch, like a comedy sketch or something, like or like a sitcom kind of situation. It is hilarious that this is happening, but it's as Gavin McInnes said, the demand for racism is far greater than the supply. And there's another show I'm on with a guy named Matt Christensen that you know, and every week we do a segment called Hoax Hate, and sometimes we have 2 or 3 where it's cases that make the news that are purported hate crimes where even before there's the update proving it's a hoax, we can just tell, okay, this is obviously not true. And it's just bizarre that they even get coverage in the first place. But that's how desperate the media is, that really they'll publish anything as long as they can push that kind of narrative, any sort of racial hysteria. And the KKK, I imagine it, like the number I heard was that they have, I think, 2,000 members across the entire country. And some percentage of that is federal informants anyway. So it's a group that basically doesn't exist and will die out on its own anyway. I mean, the fact that racist groups have to be propped up tells you how little real racism there actually is, at least on an organized basis.
And she was also sleeping with one of these white supremacists. So, I mean, you can't make this stuff up with this story. It gets better and better every day. Here she is from 2016. She was arrested Wednesday. She was charged with several counts, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. She funneled $1.2 million through the years through SPLC to white supremacy groups.
By taking their money away, they can't function anymore.
And that was successful?
Yes, every single one of them has been successful. Obviously, when these groups don't have money, that means there's less violence that they can perpetrate. You know, the whole idea is to not allow them to function.
That was 10 years ago. She's such a liar.
Their example of an extremist was a guy with a shirt that was against Islamic terrorists. Wow, what a monster. Kidding me?
Are you keeping up with the USS Lincoln and what's going on with it? The aircraft carrier that's out in the Arabian Sea.
I've heard they've had better days.
Well, you know, I'm looking into this. I'm seeing this and I'm thinking, well, this really looks political to me from the Democrats. They say that people are trying to commit suicide from the USS Lincoln. They have been at sea for a very long time, 240 days, I think. And for about 40 days, CENTCOM in Tampa, they really changed the way things were done there on the USS Lincoln. They quit having mail shipped in because they were in the middle of a war. They were busy, and there were more things that were important like food and water and those types of things. So that's what CENTCOM did. And I guess some of the family members have complained. They've said that there have been people trying to jump overboard. And from everything that I can find, there was one sailor that fell overboard August 3rd, and now it's turned into all of this. And I really think it's just a political play by the Democrats when you see people like Richard Blumenthal. He's coming out and saying, well, there needs to be an investigation. Here is a little bit of this so you can get an idea of what this is about. Or maybe we won't. It's not playing. I can't stand when that happens. Anyway, it's just telling you that they were there for 240 days, and Richard Blumenthal comes out and says that he is going to open an investigation into this. The families are upset, and we had the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. He responded to that from Blumenthal.
Completely misrepresented. Listen, we make sure that every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in those high seas and those austere conditions with less port calls, it's incredible. I mean, Americans don't understand what it's like to do that. So as someone who's not been on a ship like that, but been on long deployments, I feel it. I want them home as soon as everybody else do. I want folks rotated as quickly as possible. I want the best for them. My commanders know that. Our service secretaries know that. The president expects that. And so to that crew and to all those crews, we're going to do everything we can for you. And we are so grateful for their dedication of that crew and others. They've held the line for the country, and they've done a fantastic job.
And they are on their way back home now, Matt. The USS George Washington is being repositioned from the Pacific over to the Middle East, and they will replace the USS Lincoln, so they'll be home. And again, no one has committed suicide, although that's what you see going around. And I really believe that that's just a political thing that the Democrats are trying to, do what they do, which is always blame everything on Donald Trump, including the USS Lincoln. And obviously, I don't think it's a real big story. Do you?
No, not really at all. So,
yeah. Well, what about AOC? Is this a big story? And what's going on with her and her fiance, husband, whatever?
Yeah.
They were together for a long time. They were together for
since 2011. What a loser!
Years.
Like, if you haven't locked it down within a year, to any young women watching this, I'm sure there's at least one. If he hasn't locked it down within a year, leave. What is he waiting for? What are you waiting for? I don't understand. Unless you're like in college or high school or something. But I don't get it, man. Unless
there's the happy couple.
Unless he was playing the long game and he secretly hates her and he wanted to wait it out where she could no longer have kids, that would be diabolical and evil. But I don't get this guy at all. Although what's interesting is TMZ was claiming that they've actually been broken up for like a year or two now.
2 years.
But there's photos of them out months ago. So I don't know. Some people were speculating perhaps this is like to get around stock reporting requirements, because if he's no longer with her, he wouldn't have to report trades or something like that. But then again, I don't think he would be exempt from whatever insider trading kind of stuff they're able to get away with. So it's a bizarre situation for sure.
Yeah, his name is Robert Riley, and they've been together for years and years. From everything I can find, they've been apart now for about 2 years, but they're still very friendly. So I don't know. Maybe it is trying to get around reporting to the FEC and what money they have together. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Although the thing is, like, her financial disclosure came out this week, and she herself has never made any stock trades. So I guess, credit to her for not being corrupt, but she also she still has student loans from 2007, and I know she's probably going to be running for president in 2028, and it was something like less than 50 grand, I think, she owed when she took office in 2018. And she's been earning almost 200 grand a year for 8 years and hasn't paid that off. Like, what? How is that possible? I don't know. My point being, do you want a president who can't pay off a loan that is a third of their income over an 8-year period? And I would say no.
I would hope that you would not mention AOC and president in the same sentence again, if you would. It makes me really nervous.
Never say it again.
Yeah, you will. Of course you will, because she's the front runner for the Democrat Socialist of America. Yeah. She is one of those, too, by the way. She was not the first, but because Barack Obama was a Democrat Socialist of America as well. He's the father of all of it.
Just didn't identify as it, but
yeah,
for sure.
He spawned all of this mess is what Barack Obama has done. Look at Wisconsin and the primary that was Tuesday, because we have not talked about it. Both of us said that Hong was going to win. The polls showed that she was
right.
up. Yeah, 22 points.
Yeah, they were wrong.
And we were both wrong, really wrong on that one. And I think most people were, because she was ahead 22 points. Crowley ended up winning a very close race there. Yeah. About 3,200 votes is what it came down to.
So this race was kind of being viewed as a referendum on the DSA's influence because, hey, they won all these races in New York City, but it's New York City. Like, if I ran in New York City against a Democrat who died a day before the election, I would lose in a landslide. So the point is, anyone who's far left can get elected there. It's not like this crazy thing. I mean, it's not new to their politics. The only new thing is they identify her as Democratic Socialist. In Wisconsin, she lost by about half a point, and this was a major upset relative to the polls. And I'm wondering who was doing this polling. But the guy who won, Crowley, after he won, said to a local paper, "There are no ideological differences between me and Francesca Hong, and they're now going to do a unity tour together where they're going to be campaigning together for him." So she got 39 and change, I think, percent of the vote. He got 39 and change plus half a percent.
About 3,200 votes.
But you round up, and her ideology got 80% of the vote. in that election. So it was a referendum on electability because listen, they had the same views, but she had tweets about abolishing Thanksgiving, claiming that she gets panic attacks around white people, calling for abolishing police in the Senate, while he at least didn't tweet crazy things that can be used against him. So they're not like the Democrats are to the left. The most recent polling I saw from CNN had it at about a third of Democrats are Democratic Socialists. Gallup asked that same question 2 years ago, and it was over 60% call themselves socialist. So it's okay. You take the average; it's still about close to half. So no, the Democratic Party is a socialist party at this point. And the only difference is, do they run as Democratic Socialists or do they run as Democrats who are socialists? And I mean, we actually, within the past year, there was a resolution I think Maria Salazar introduced called, I think it was called Condemning the Horrors of Socialism. And it did not, it passed on a bipartisan basis, but within the Democratic caucus, a majority voted against it. And then Tom Suozzi, a Democrat rep, after the DSA sweep in New York a few months ago, created a pledge for Democrats who were against the DSA, were for border security, and were for capitalism. And he could only find 12 Democrats, including himself, to sign it. So that's the state of the party. Yeah,
that's exactly where the Democrats are. They are socialist and communist, but you see also that the establishment Democrats are still trying to maintain some power. They didn't want Hong to win. And I wondered if the polls actually energized some people to go vote for Crowley, especially after Governor Evers put his effort behind him and endorsed him. That was a last-minute endorsement. Crowley had dropped out of that race in Wisconsin and suddenly came back when Evers endorsed him, and he won that quick. But 2 weeks in a row now, we have polls that have been way off. We had Michigan with El Sayed that was going to beat Haley Stevens by 10 points, and it came down to 1 point. Same thing here in Wisconsin. The polls are wrong, aren't they?
It has to be on purpose.
Yeah, I think so too. Something is going on.
Like, I think it's the opposite. I think it's to demoralize people. Where it's the guy when the poll that had Francesca Hong 20 points up. Like, if I were a pollster trying to help her, I would put out a number where if you're someone who supports the other candidates, you're going, oh, what's the point of voting? Like, if we're going to lose by 20, what the heck's the point? And I mean, they obviously tried that in 2016 with Trump, and they were all off by, I think, 4 points on average or something. I think only Rasmussen came close. So
we have a few more primaries coming up this coming Tuesday. They will go till the middle of September, and then we'll start winding down and get ready for the general election in November. Coming up this Tuesday, you have Florida, a big governor race down there with Byron Donalds, endorsed by Donald Trump. You have running against him someone endorsed by Ron DeSantis, Governor Ron DeSantis, and that is Jay Collins, who is the lieutenant governor in that state, who was appointed by DeSantis. DeSantis said Friday he is not endorsing and putting his effort behind Byron Donalds. And from what I'm hearing from a lot of people in Florida, they're not excited about Byron Donalds. It's going to be an interesting race. On Tuesday, you also have former Speaker of the House Paul Renner that is running in Florida. So it's going to be an interesting race to watch. More importantly is if Byron Donalds win with the lack of support that I'm hearing and seeing in the state of Florida, what is his race going to be like in November against a very moderate Democrat who used to be a Republican in the U.S. House of Representatives in David Jolly? So that one's going to be interesting. You also have Alaska and Montana, and neither one of those really are going to bring anything for us to really talk about nationally.
Yeah, I mean, I know Florida, the GOP obviously leads in registrations by a lot, but the cliche that turnout is the only thing that matters, which is probably the most blatantly obvious election observation you could make, is true. And that, back in November of last year, when Democrats were just sweeping every offbeat election, there were Democrats who picked up a few seats in the Florida legislature, and they were in areas where Republicans out-registered Democrats by 10 points. It was just it was a combination of them not turning out plus independents breaking Democrats. So you can have a double-digit cushion and still lose depending on the circumstances. And this happens time and time again when Republicans run minority candidates. They, I think to themselves, well, we're going to get our base plus some share of the black vote will then vote for us if we have a black candidate. I think that might have been the thinking with Winsome Sears as well. And unfortunately, it just doesn't pan out. The turnout is just not there for them. So, well,
and turnout has been terrible. We've talked about it extensively on the radio show. It has been terrible since last November. Mm-hmm. And you talked about those Florida races. We talked about those on the radio show. And there was even Cleveland, Ohio, flipped for the first time from Democrat to Republican. It's not that the Republicans don't have the votes aren't going out to vote. And that's the big thing. And Democrats continue to be energized. They're going out to vote. And that's what you have to look for, regardless of what the polls say. And we'll get into a little bit about the Senate polls here before this hour is over. But we are going to take a break here. We are going to come back with Micah Beckwith. He is the lieutenant governor in the state of Indiana, where they have some terrible flooding that has been going on the last 48 hours, and it looks like it probably will continue through the weekend as a result of more showers and thunderstorms in the Midwest of the United States.
Tired of struggling with low energy? We get it. That's why we created Organic Energy Juice. You'll have natural energy all day, and you'll never struggle with low energy again. In just 2 minutes, you can restore your natural energy without chemicals, without stimulants, no toxins, and there is no crash. You shouldn't have to struggle with low energy, and with the Organic Energy Juice, you won't. So if you're struggling with low energy, buying Organic Energy Juice is the right decision. Go to chemicalfreebody.com, use the discount code PBJ, and get your Organic Energy Juice today.
And welcome back to the PB&J Podcast. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on WD Americans Facebook Live, they have great content there. If you're not following them, please do that. They have about 3.5 million followers there at WD Americans Facebook and have great content all week long. Also, if you're watching on Talk Red on any of those platforms, thank you for doing that. We are now going to bring to the stage Micah Beckwith. He is the lieutenant governor in the state of Indiana. He's quite outspoken, and he is also, I would say, interesting because his background is that of a pastor. So we can have all types of conversation. He's outspoken about Sharia law, Muslims. He's outspoken about LGBTQ. He'll fit right in with us, Matt, because we have been outspoken about those things. But Lieutenant Governor, thank you for making time on a busy weekend for you. I'm sure you got your hands full there in Indiana.
Well, thank you, guys. Good to be with you. Yeah, we've been getting hit with these floods and the storms. It has been very crazy, but so far, there's been a very minimal loss of life, which is always a good thing. And then we just got a lot of roads out and a lot of rain and lots of water. So if you guys need any water, we can maybe send some down for you. So.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming on, by the way.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, happy to be here. Appreciate it.
So you got your hands full with the flooding going on, and I know that Governor Braun, he did mention that I guess he declared a state of emergency on Thursday or Friday of this week, so that will allow resources to be deployed certain areas, maybe the National Guard. So I just want you to know that our thoughts and prayers are with you guys this weekend, and hopefully you'll get some dry weather.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's got a lot of rain. This is probably in some places of the state, this is one of those 100-year storms, right? I know there's one part of the state that hasn't seen floodwaters this high since 1911. So it's a big deal. But yeah, thank you for the prayers. And we've seen minimal loss of life, so that's always very good. But we certainly are going to have a lot of drying out to do, and if you guys need any water, we can maybe send some down your way. So, yeah.
Well, I mentioned you were a pastor, and that brings me into Christian nationalism, because I think this is something that has become a buzzword of the left to create fear in people, because I probably think like you, and that I want people that view the world as I do in a biblical worldview to be in political positions. And it doesn't mean that they're Bible thumping anyone, but that's the way it's taken by the left, isn't it? And I know that you have been outspoken about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So they'll try to, pigeonhole me, and they like to redefine words and language. And so I just don't let them do it. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a Christian, and the way I view nationalism is someone who cares and loves their nation. But if you want to identify me, I'm much better identified as a Christian federalist. And so I tell people that's what I call myself, as a Christian federalist, because federalism is really the bedrock of our republic, which is the sovereignty of the 50 states and a decentralized constitutional republic. And so that's really the heart of federalism. So I'm a Christian. I love God first and foremost, but out of that love for God flows my love for my neighbor, which then benefits my state. And if everyone has that type of love within their states, the states will be strong, and then together we will be a strong nation. And so that's kind of how I view my worldview is I love God, and then out of that flows my heart to serve others around me and to care for the people that God has called me to care for, which is ultimately my family, my community, and my state. And then that will make a strong nation, and hopefully we can be a good neighbor to the world then as a nation, and be a city on a hill.
I know you were on a podcast back in June. I believe it was called Flashpoint. It's a Christian podcast. And in that podcast, you made a comment about Muslims and Sharia law. And I think you said that they were demonic. But you went on and kind of said exactly what you just said a minute ago, which is loving everybody and loving your fellow man. But that's not what the left did with it. That's not what they're trying to pigeonhole you with this time either. You seem to have a target on your back by people on the left. Is that fair?
That's very fair. Marxists don't like me, which is I wear that as a badge of honor. And people who hate America don't like me. So and I'm glad they don't like me. I use it as a litmus test. Anytime I get attacked by people who I know hate God, they hate the foundations and the principles of this nation, and they hate our nation, then I'm doing something right. And I want them to keep hating me, because then I know I'm walking down the right path. But what I said was not that Muslims are demonic, but that Islam is demonic ideology. And I said, hey, I love Muslims. I would give a Muslim in my community the shirt off my back if they needed it, and I would help them. I would serve them and care for them. But their ideology, I believe, is a wicked, evil ideology that is totally incompatible with the American way of life, and we should not put up with that ideology. It's no different than saying we should all hate white supremacy, right? It's really evil ideology. Now you're gonna say, hey, love the white supremacists and serve them because Jesus says to love people, right? And but you don't have to love the ideology. And so when I say, hey, I hate Islam, but I love Muslims, I mean it. And I will say it again for the people in the back. I hate Islam, but I love Muslims. And we should all learn to hate what is evil. And it's kind of been a real hard a concept for the left to grasp, like this word hatred. The left hates a lot. They're very hateful people in a lot of ways. However, they when you say, hey, we should hate evil ideology, they're like, oh my gosh, he said hate. He can't hate. You shouldn't hate. God doesn't hate. I'm like, well, God hates a lot of things. The Bible's very clear about what God hates and what he loves. And so that's been a concept I've been trying to, warn people to say, hey, if we don't hate evil, then we open up the gates to let evil into our communities, and it will destroy us eventually over time if we don't get this right.
Yeah, Matt, you want to come in here?
Well, I was going to say, too, liberals also don't recognize that the values of Islam are also a threat to the things that they care about as well. There was an example that comes to mind was there was some town, I think, in the north where Muslims won a majority on the city council.
Dearborn.
It must have been there. And then, all the liberals are like, I think one of the things they did, one of the first things, which I thought was awesome, was banning the pride flag to go from buildings. And there was some quote that was like, I don't understand. We supported you. How could you do this to us? And it's like, yeah, that's how it works. They'll take advantage of that. So, well, I guess it's more of a comment, not a question. But yeah, that is how it goes.
It's the Red Green Alliance. If you go back to 1979 in Iran, the Shah was torn down by the communists, right? The Marxists. They actually, the world media and the Marxist press at the time, they were heralding the Ayatollah Khomeini as a women's rights activist in 1978 in Iran, right? And they said, we need to get this guy in power because he's going to treat women better than the Shah treats women. And then they tear down everything. The IRGC comes in, and then they march all the communists out to the street and execute them within that next year. And they're all like, what happened? We were helping you guys. Yeah. And it's like, it's kind of like, when you see signs that say like, queers for Palestine, it's like, that's that's chickens for Chick-fil-A. You do know, like that'd be chickens out there, supporting Chick-fil-A. Like, don't do that. It's foolish.
Very much so. Yeah. It's important to clarify, though, that even though the the Islamists in Iran did kill the communists. There are still bad people.
That's right. Yes.
Clarify.
That's right. That's a good point.
When you said that on Flashpoint, since then, Governor Braun came out and said that he thinks that maybe you would have chosen some different words. Is that fair, or do you think he's just trying to deflect?
Well, Governor Braun and I, we have a good relationship, and he's just a totally different style than I am, and so, which is fine. Which I think that's why we work well together. He's not going to be the guy that comes out, like a Ron DeSantis, sort of whipping the hornet's nest. He's really good at getting things done and running the state. He's got a great business mind. He's good. He's really good with numbers, and he's genuinely conservative. He's just not necessarily going to be out like leading on that, like, hey, we're gonna storm the Bastille with social conservative values, which is totally fine. But I'm the opposite. I'm like, hey, we're going to like loudly proclaim social conservative values. And so if it was him, he would definitely not say it that way. Although I think him and I agree on the concept that Islam is incompatible with American values. And so, I think he was asked the question, do you think, the lieutenant governor regrets that? And he said, well, I don't know, maybe. They asked me, they said, do you regret that? I'm like, no, I do not regret saying that. And him and I have talked about it. And here's the beauty about Governor Braun is, he never once tells me, hey, say something differently, or don't say that, or do this. He's very like, he really just allows me to kind of be who I am. He'll just kind of like a mentor, maybe like kind of like a father figure in my life, to kind of say, they're going to use those words against you, if you say it that way. And I'm like, I totally get that. And I know they will. And I'm their Huckleberry. I'm ready for them. So let's go,
The thing is, no matter what you say, it's going to be used against
That's
you.
Right.
Like I'll see on social media, people will romanticize like the 2012 election and the 2008 election. And they'll share these clips of like McCain and Obama being nice to each other, or Romney and McCain. And
they hated McCain and Romney.
I'm like, I don't remember you guys loving them when you could have voted for them. So why are you pretending? Like I think Obama released, it was either him or one of, the PAC supporting him released an ad where they were showing Paul Ryan pushing elderly people off a cliff. Like that's how that got their kindness got reciprocated. So why do we care? And that's the whole Trump is a reaction to all of that, of us going, all right, we tried to be nice and not sure what we got for it, so now we be mean, and that's how it's going to be from now on.
That's right. I think it's funny. I hear Nancy Pelosi romanticize about George W. Bush, like, oh my goodness, like he was the type of president that America really needs, and I'm like, you hated him. Like I remember you vilifying him. He was a megalomaniac, like warmonger. Like I remember all of those things when I was in college, and so it's funny. I mean, that's what history does. We look back with rose-colored glasses and forget it's always kind of been this way,
forever. Yeah, thousands of years, really.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Indiana fever, because you've had some words to say this week about having that coach removed from the Indiana fever. My daughter loves Caitlin Clark. She plays basketball. My daughter does, and she loves Sophie Cunningham. I actually got to meet her at a golf tournament earlier this year. But what are we going to do here? We're going to have men in women's basketball, and I think we have the NBA already. But is that where this is going to go, or what's the WNBA going to do?
Well, listen, I love what Enes Kanter have done and Royce White. They basically called their bluff and said, okay, fine. If you guys can't define what the W is in the WNBA, then we will jump in and play too. And now they're freaking out. And you got the commissioner of the WNBA calling a special meeting to say, can we define what a woman is, please? Which is hilarious and sad all at the same time, that we live in a society where this is actually happening. But I think it's kind of like what Elijah did on Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal, right? He sort of mocked their foolishness in public to show the rest of the nation, hey, this is how stupid they are, right? And if you want to go with them, fine, but just know they're really dumb. And I think that's what kind of Enes Kanter and Royce White are doing. They're kind of mocking all of this in public, and not to be mean, but to make the point, guys, this is incredibly dumb, right? This should not be rocket science. And so, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. I think they are I'm so astonished and proud that they are in Indiana. Like, this is great. Like, this is amazing for Indiana. It's great for the Fever. And yet the Fever have been treating them like crap, right? Like, these are their golden gooses. People are tuning in to watch the WNBA for the first time in 20 plus years. And it's because of really Caitlin Clark, but now, like, with Sophie Cunningham being who she's become as a cultural icon, like, people are coming in to buy tickets at the games, and the Fever treat them like they're redheaded stepchildren. And it's like, what are you guys doing? And so when I saw Stephanie White, Coach White, just didn't back up Sophie Cunningham when she got just hammered with that flagrant foul, and like, no coach, I played basketball in high school and I played sports in college, and no coach would ever go out publicly and take the side of the opposing team. No matter what happened, you would say something like, no, hey, our team's united. I stand with my player. Like, right call. Well done. She took the other side. She took the side of the flagrant foul, and it was kind of like, what are you doing? And so I just it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. It's one of those things where you're like, in the shower, getting ready for the day. I just tweeted real quick, okay, the Fever need to fire and let go of Stephanie White and move on. This is terrible coaching. That's all I said. It really wasn't a mean tweet or anything. It was just, that was what I said. And it blew up by that afternoon, U.S. News and World Report was, talking about it. It's like, what? It's like, and then here's the funny thing. Then people say, oh my goodness, the lieutenant governor needs to stay in his lane and not talk about sports. Okay, I'll make you a deal, WNBA. When you stay out of my lane in politics, I'll stay out of your lane in sports. But until then, the sky's the limit, and we're going to go. So
I'm obviously against having men and women's sports, but I feel like just one game with Cantor and the other guy would be the best. I would be the only time I ever watch. It would be the best television whole year.
Amazing. Well, that's what Clay Travis is doing, right, with the Nashville Balls, and he put up $10 million if the Las Vegas Aces would play a state championship boys team of his choice. And and they're not going to do it because even then we know, like, it's just men and women are so much different that I don't think the Las Vegas Aces would stand a chance against the state champ boys team. And that's not to slam the women. It's just to say we're biologically different. That's why we have the WNBA. So let's keep it that way. Protect women's sports, for crying out loud.
Last line of questioning for you, and that is the redistricting that Indiana did not do. And I guess 6 or 7 lost in the primary that Trump had endorsed. Were you frustrated through that process when Indiana chose not to do that?
Yeah, I mean, very frustrated in the sense that we have a lot of senators that show that they can't see the greater picture in the battle at hand, right? And listen, many of them are good people. Many of the senators that chose not to support redistricting are, I would call them even probably conservative in their ideology, but they don't understand the battle at hand. And I've come to say, listen, I don't just want conservatives in government. I want conservatives who know how to fight and know what they're up against. And because you can be conservative all day long, but if you don't know what you're up against and you don't know how to fight, then you're going to be useless. And that's what's kind of happened in the Indiana Senate over the last 15, 20 years. They just got complacent. So then Trump says, hey, guys, Indiana, we need you to support us. We need you to step up and redistrict because we got these two congressional seats that we could win back that would be really helpful in the midterms. And it wasn't, it's not immoral in the eyes of God. It wasn't unconstitutional in our Constitution, and it wasn't unethical. So I said, let's go. Like, this is what the other side does. Like, we should fight fire with fire. Yeah. But I will tell you this, for Indiana's perspective, it turned out to be a good thing because then the Trump team came in, the governor, myself, we rallied behind these candidates. There were 8 senators who voted no on redistricting on the Republican side that were up for re-election. We beat 7 of them with just recently last week with that 7th coming in. There was a 3-vote recount. Ours lost, but then she flipped it on the recount, which is hardly ever happens.
That's awesome.
So and put it in perspective, over the last 20 plus years, Indiana has only ever lost 3 incumbent Republican senators in 20 plus years. And the Senate lost 7 in one night, which tells you the party was really ticked off. The base was ticked off that these senators didn't stand with President Trump and fight fire with fire. So I think it'll be good for us. We're going to have a stronger Senate now with these 7 new coming in. It's going to be a powerhouse Senate, I think, finally, which will be good for Indiana. I just hope it doesn't, hurt us in the midterms out in Washington by losing the House by 1 or 2 votes.
Wouldn't that be something? That would be terrible if that happens. So, Micah, we're going to let you go. Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith from the state of Indiana, you got your hands full this weekend with the flooding. Here's some video of some of the flooding going on, some pictures. But I hope you guys get through that okay. And thank you so much for coming on the program. I really do appreciate you doing that. And please come back. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for all you're doing. Keep it up. Yep. And good to be with you.
Thank you, Micah.
Sorry for my making it awkward when we dropped off and came back.
That's okay. Well, very interesting.
I misinterpreted what something on the screen said. I didn't realize he was still recording. I thought maybe we weren't. And anyway, just wanted to avoid a tech disaster. But that was a really good interview.
Yeah, he's very, very outspoken. And I want to go to look at some of these polls right now. Yeah. This is real clear politics. And this is Donald Trump's approval rating or not approval rating, depending on how you look at it. So he's sitting right at about 40%, which is where he's been for about a year. And I compare him a lot to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was at 40% in 1982, lost 34 seats in that midterm election. And that's what's bothering me as we come into this midterm. Now, let's look at some Senate races here, Matt, because I think they're all toss-ups right now. You have Tallarico and Paxton. That is within the margin of error. I do too. I really believe Paxton will.
And Rogers El Said, I think, will be 5+ points in favor of Rogers. It's just
that helped. El Sayed winning that, it definitely helped Mike Rogers. The polls now have him up 3-4 points since that election last week. So hopefully that's the direction it's going in. But you have Georgia. Ossoff is going to win. It's going to be a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. You have Ashley Moody in Florida against Alexander Vindman. She looks solid. But then the rest of those that you see here on this board, they're still all toss-ups. So Collins is,
I think Collins
losing.
Will win as well.
I do too. She's always like this. She's always 2 or 3 points behind, but then she pulls it out somehow. So I think she will again.
In her last election, she overperformed the polls by like 10+ points. I think she was down by 10 points on election day on the poll that day, and then pulled out a huge win. So it's, I don't know. The thing is, like, we all know national polls are always off by a few points. State polls are even worse. So, it's really, I want to take it with a grain of salt.
We talked about Wisconsin earlier, but I didn't play this video. I want to play this because this was NBC, and during the night, I don't know if you saw this, but they lost 5 USBs with votes.
Oh,
on.
I saw, and you can see in Steve Kornacki's face, he's going, "Wait a second, we really are steering these elections." Oh my God!
Yeah, no I've got that video. Let's watch it. We'll watch it together.
It's fantastic.
If 5 of the USB sticks were missing results from the election, so then they have to go try to re-grab them. And they're
it goes on for a full minute, by the way.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I cut it off. It was painful. Yeah, it was painful for me, so I got rid of it. Yeah. But I mean, this is what we've been telling you for 6 years now about the machines and Dominion and the USBs. This is what we've been saying, and now the people at NBC they don't even know what to say. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
Kornacki is one of the only liberals I'll actually watch. I actually follow his coverage during every election because he knows like the most obscure details about every single town's elections that he's reporting on, which is I just can't find anyone else who knows as much bizarre knowledge like that. But he's one of those people who's like, these crazy Republicans think we're stealing elections. Then his guy goes, "Hey, they're stealing it as we speak. What are your thoughts?" It's fantastic.
Well, did you ever play dodgeball as a kid?
Oh, I did not do well. No,
you did not.
But
like
yes,
that.
I played it. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you've seen this story, but there's this kid, 13-year-old kid, who I guess through the volleyball or the dodgeball at his ex-girlfriend. Why he has an ex-girlfriend and 13 years old, I'm not sure, but he does. And she ends up in the hospital, and it's a whole mess. But here's that video.
What started as a harmless game of dodgeball.
She froze.
Well, she did freeze. I don't know why.
It started as a harmless game of dodgeball, quickly
It did.
turned into something far more serious.
It did, and
That's my guess.
the girl had bruises on her, and they have charged the boy with this. However, the school, they didn't get him in trouble. He didn't miss any school. He wasn't suspended. There was the sheriff interviewed the girl and the boy without the parents being involved. So it's a whole mess. It should be just a simple game of dodgeball, but it wasn't. And I'm sorry that video didn't play. That's disappointing.
Yeah. Now, the schools definitely need to get more involved when there actually is crimes involving students. And Obama was actually behind the push to make it so schools would not report these sorts of things. And the justification was that sort of disparate impact logic of, well, it's, black students are more likely to be suspended or get in trouble at school. Therefore, it's racist. Therefore, don't enforce the law. And one of the most notable consequences of that was Nick Cruz, the Parkland shooter, had gotten himself, I believe, expelled from a high school for a fight. Prior to the Obama rules, the school would have then went forward to try to get charges involved and all of that. They did not. And then, it would have prevented him from being able to legally own a gun. And we all know what happened next. So just a side point.
I have one more I want to play before this hour is over. And James O'Keefe, he went to Minnesota the week of the primary, and he dressed up as a Muslim. And he took 3, 4, 5 guys with him dressed up the same, some of them as women. And they do this thing in Minnesota where you can vouch for people that they are citizens. And that's what he did, undercover. Let's watch this video together.
Say that I'm vouching for them. The name is William Lawrence. The question about the vouching program, vouching. I can vouch for them, but they are not registered. That's okay, that's fine. Can I bring 5 more from up to 8 people? Okay, that's a good thing. We go back and we get Krishna and Ernesto and Mohammed. In Minnesota, you can show up on election day and vouch for up to 8 unregistered voters. Members of the Justice League dress up in traditional Muslim attire, including a transgender wearing a burqa, and put this vouching law to an extreme test on primary day, August 11th.
Gonna be a baller, shot caller 20.
It's amazing that that's allowed, that you can just go and vouch for people. Yeah, they're citizens. They're not registered to vote, but let's have them vote. And that's why things like the SAVE Act is so important, to clean up voter rolls and make sure that only U.S. citizens are voting in these elections. And when the Senate comes back, I doubt that they will vote for it again. And by the way, the Senate is out, and they are still preventing Donald Trump from making recess appointments. Every other president has done it. Donald Trump is not doing it because John Thune is having someone come in and gavel in every day, and that's preventing Donald Trump from appointing people through recess appointments, and that's very disappointing.
No, truly. He's clearly doing this on purpose. But with James O'Keefe, for many decades, people thought the Clark Kent disguise, they would totally be able to tell it's Superman behind, the whole time. Turns out that's really all you got to do is put on some glasses and no one can tell you're James O'Keefe. So
yeah.
Very funny. I do love how little effort he puts into disclosing it, to hiding his identity.
All right. We're almost to the end of this hour, Matt. Where do we go this week? What do we look for? What do we do? I noticed that Donald Trump has kind of changed his messaging. He's talking about how low crime is. It's historical lows in violent crime. And that's the messaging I think they should do. The border, he mentioned Friday afternoon, the border, 15 months in a row, 0 illegals have come across the border. That's what we voted for. Yeah. We voted for less crime.
And the less crime is in part thanks to the cleanup of illegal aliens. If we've really gotten rid of 3 million people, like you said, if 1 out of 1,000 of them are violent criminals, it's going to show up in the data, and it's probably far more than that. So no, it's a very good thing. And I know some people are cynical with the data because, states like New York and California are kind of gloating like, our crime is the lowest it's ever been. And it's like, yeah, you're riding a national trend that you have absolutely nothing to do with and are fighting. And I'll see people on our side comment like, well, it's because you're hiding the numbers, you're not reporting it. I mean, we know for a fact in DC that actually was happening, but for the most part, violent crime, especially murder, is pretty reliably reported because if you're a victim of a violent crime, you always generally report it. Murder, we're very liberal in how we count murders, even if there's no conviction. If there's someone found with a bullet in the back of their head, we count it as a murder. Like, these things are harder to conceal. I think, though, those concerns definitely are valid when it's lower level crimes. And I think we've discussed this on this show. Like, in places like California, if I can walk into a place and shoplift and there's no consequences, no one's reporting it because what's the point? So when it comes to those kind of crimes, if people want to say, like, in liberal states, like, yeah, our shoplifting is down, yes, it actually probably is because they're not being reported. When it is violent crimes, it is way less likely to be the case. Although, disclaimer, we know in DC they were doctoring the data, but I haven't seen evidence of that in other states, at least yet.
And Donald Trump has threatened the National Guard in Chicago again. He did that this week because they are still killing each other on the weekend. Almost every weekend it happens in Chicago, unfortunately. Yeah. Oh, Matt, we're to the end of the hour. Go ahead. Let's finish. I was going to make
one last point because I see these flock cameras are being debated everywhere. Yeah. And, obviously the argument in favor of it is catch criminals. The argument against it is crazy privacy when I say crazy privacy concerns, I mean like the government having crazy access, not that the privacy concern is crazy. But my take is, listen, is the problem with our cities that we can't identify criminals? And the answer is no. We already have cameras everywhere. We already have phones tracking everywhere. We already have license plate readers everywhere. So that's not the problem. The problem is we don't charge them, or we charge them and we give them a plea deal for that crime and the next 100 crimes they commit. Like, we need to be enforcing the law. And privacy concerns aside, if flock resulted in more arrests and then nothing happens, what's the point? Like if you're giving up privacy and at least there's a notable decline in murder, I would say, all right, that's a debate to be had. But you would be giving up privacy and then nothing would actually be happening. So that's my take on this.
Yeah, well, we have to enforce laws, and we need to put people in jail. Yes. And by the way, I don't know if you saw that Thursday. There were 3 people in America executed, put to death from death row. First time that's happened since 2010.
Great.
It's been 16 years. America has put 3 people to death in one day. We should sell
tickets to it. We could monetize. Help
reduce the deficit. That'd be a great way to end this hour.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. You've been watching the PB&J Podcast.
You have been watching a no-budget production, the PB&J Podcast.